Welcome to the Dani Ariza podcast today. I have the pleasure of having here Amanda, Nadia, and let me say it right, because I don't want to, Abdel Sayed.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Now Amanda Nadia DaSilva because I just got married.
Oh, nice.
So.
Congratulations. Yeah, I saw the
Thank
pictures.
you.
That was
Thank you.
Where was the wedding?
In Portugal. There's an
Oh.
island off the coast of Portugal called Madeira. That's where we got married.
Oh, nice. Is that
Yeah.
why have I heard that island?
You know Madeira wine?
Yes.
That's where it comes from.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think Ronaldo is from there.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. The
Cristiano?
airport is Cristiano Ronaldo Airport, and they have Ronaldo shrines everywhere on the
Oh.
island. It's really funny.
Yeah, that's I mean, I almost be, how was that like, it was I think I saw it was out definitely outside, right?
It was outside. It was right on the water, and it was a dream. It was so beautiful. So all of our family came, and friends, and we just had it was a small, intimate wedding, but it was great. It was really
How long
great.
were you planning that wedding for?
So originally we were going to elope and just with our immediate family. And then last minute we decided to invite some more people. So in 2 months I planned a huge destination wedding for 70 people. And it was great.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I got married and it was similar. I mean, we didn't get married got married here in Elizabeth, but we started planning a big wedding, and all of a sudden we realized that holy crap, this is
Yeah.
hard work.
It
you start
is.
we said, okay, you know what, we could do 150, and then we started doing the math, and it was like, no, like we're leaving out a ton of people, and it's like you leave out some, and then it's. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what, let's just go to City Hall.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that I wish I would have invited or could have invited. We were just trying to keep it as small and intimate as possible. Even keeping it as small and intimate as possible, it ended up being a lot more people than we
Yeah.
expected. But we're planning on having another New Jersey wedding where we can invite like all of our friends and family that weren't able to make it because understandably it was short notice and it was an island. You had to take 2 flights,
Yeah.
but I was super grateful for everyone that did come out.
Yeah, because you have to fly into Lisbon and
Yeah, either
then-
Lisbon or Porto or the Azores, and then you take a secondary flight to Madeira. But now United is flying direct, so
Oh, nice.
they just started this summer.
That's all. And he's from Portugal, or
Yeah, his family's from Portugal. He was born here, but his family's from Portugal. So we go every year we would go visit his grandparents and then explore kind of the country. And it's really such a beautiful country. It was like our hidden secret, like just exploring all these places before COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID, like Portugal blew up, but it's still an amazing country that we love to go
Isn't
to.
it crazy that how they know how to live over there?
Yeah.
It's like, I always, every time I've gone, I mean, I haven't traveled in a long time, but like 5 years since I had the kids. But every time I went to Italy or Spain, I'm like, I could do this.
And it's beautiful and it's simple. It's no fuss. It's just living off the farms and you're eating real natural ingredients and the food is amazing and just gathering together with family and friends and your neighbors, and I love it there. Eventually we want to buy a property there too
Yeah.
because it really is just a totally different quality of life out there.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's amazing. I saw the pictures and I've been following you for a long time. I wouldn't say stalking you, but I've been following you for a long time because I think you do such an amazing job in social media.
Thank you.
And like, we met a couple of years ago briefly at the golf outing, but mainly the reason I was following you is because, like I was telling you, I want to buy I have a beautiful house right now that I love, and we've done a ton of work. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. We're not the only ones in this situation where it's like it's getting smaller, and definitely, if we're gonna move from a house that we love, I want to go into a brand new house where it's like everything's done, and I mean, you always have to do something, but it's like, no, I don't have to like break walls or
Right.
do anything.
Right.
And at least I feel like you're the go-to person when it comes to luxury brand new construction.
Thank you.
So right off the bat, I want to ask you how do you get into that specific
Yeah.
segment of real estate?
So when I first got my real estate license, it really wasn't necessarily with the intention to sell. It was really because I wanted to become an investor and renovate properties myself. So I ended up getting my real estate license because it was just another tool as an investor that I would have to be able to find properties and whatnot. I joined a lot of networking groups for investors and I flipped a few properties, and I actually came to realize that I like selling better than I like flipping.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it and love it so much. But my skill set is really in the sales aspect and kind of stewarding people through the process. And having renovated many of my own properties, and now my husband is a builder also, so I'm part of the entire process with him and the other builders that I work with. But I would say when I was just starting off and I was renovating my own properties, and then I was also working with people that were looking to buy properties or sell properties, it really came in handy as a skill set that I had, not having just like selling,
Yeah.
but having that hands-on experience myself. So I just really immersed myself in as much knowledge and education as I could in terms of construction, working with investors, renovating my own properties as much as possible, and then kind of taking everything that I learned, helping other investors avoid mistakes that different investors were making, and then helping those investors build a brand for themselves so that they weren't necessarily just flippers, but becoming builders and developers. And then what I really love is helping homeowners or people like yourself that are looking to buy a new construction or a newly renovated house, but not everyone has construction expertise, and it might look beautiful on the outside, but behind the walls, what are you really getting?
Yeah.
So really being able to help people understand construction, and is a basement waterproofed, and what's a French drain, and how many sump pumps do you have, and is there a battery backup, and things that will give them peace of mind, not just when they're excited to get this new house, but they want to have peace of mind going through the process and living in the home and knowing that they bought not just a newly renovated home, but a newly quality renovated home.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's such a, look, I've done, in my house, right, we did probably $150,000 in renovations and everything. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
And it's a lot of work, and not just that, but it's like, if you have kids, it's such a pain in the butt, because you're like, like right now we have one bathroom that we have to renovate because it's pretty old. The other ones we did it, but this one is like kind of where the ones that the kids go to. And we're like, okay, we need to like get out of the house for 2 weeks.
Right. Right.
And it's like, oh, I don't really want to do that. And then it's like, once you take the kid, I have a small kids. Once you take the kids out, it's like, oh, crap.
Right.
And then on top of that, it's like, it goes back to what you were saying, how do you make sure that things are getting done the right way? Because let's face it, most people, everyone watches HGTV and wants to be cheap in Joanna.
Right.
But it's, it comes to the quality and doing it the right way. So, definitely, I mean, having someone like you, it's a huge help.
It looks very glamorous on TV. HGTV makes it look like, oh, this is going to be the best process ever. We just hire a contractor, and in 30 minutes, our whole house will be done. And like you said, it is definitely a process, and it is a huge inconvenience, especially if you have a family. I tell anyone that's taking on, I have a lot of people that come to me and say, hey, we want to do an add a level on our home. Can we still live in it while we're doing that? I'm like, absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Or people that want to do their own construction process, like maybe building new construction for themselves, but they have no experience whatsoever. You really need to have a reputable builder, not just a person that does spec builds, but a person that does custom builds, because you need to work with someone that's going to be able to steward you through the process and have the patience to educate you through the process. What I've noticed is that spec builders, they want to just get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And a custom home builder has a process and systems, and has a process and a system for like bringing a homeowner through. But I always tell people, like, if you want to do a renovation, I will fully support you, but make sure you have an amazing contractor and a marriage counselor
Yeah.
because it is definitely stressful
No,
on
absolutely.
all
Yeah.
parties involved.
Absolutely. Like my mother-in-law lives with us and I love her to death. She's the most amazing woman out there. But like she has her own way of, she's the one that really keeps the house because, my wife and I, we travel so much. She travels a lot and I'm always working. But it's, it gets crazy in the house when we put an HVAC system
Right.
new and they had to break walls and everything. Oh my
Right.
God. It was just like,
Yeah,
it,
and
it,
and a lot of contractors, they might be a good contractor for doing HVAC, but if they're not conscious of the livability of the house and they're not sealing things off for the homeowner, before you know it, you have dust and debris throughout your whole house and you're having to clean out your air ducts and nobody can breathe and you can't be in the house. So really finding the right contractors is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you. So let's say, I go ahead and come to you and tell you, hey, we want to buy a brand new house, right? Or a completely renovated house. What would be the first step? It will be, would you recommend, like, do you go to like a builder and say, hey, what are the projects that you have? Like they basically you go back and forth with the client to get exactly what the client wants? Or is it just something that the builder already has everything done and says, okay, this is what you're going to get? How does that work?
So the first thing I would say is finding an amazing lender to understand your budget. That's key. So having your budget in mind first and like, okay, this is what we're pre-approved for. And then once you have your total budget, then I would first look at properties on the market to see if anything fits what you're looking for that are newly built properties. Then I would look for properties that you could renovate per se. The other option is to find a property that's midway through construction. So maybe it's like a pre-sale property where you can possibly step in through the construction process and select your finishes. It's kind of a hybrid between building a custom home and buying a home that's already complete, but a lot of the decision fatigue has been made already. So you're really just making selections and like maybe if you need to move a wall or two for the floor plan, that's an option, but that's really going to be the easiest route and quickest route to get you into the home. If you're like, hey, I really want to build a custom house, what I would say is a lot of people look for land, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I would first look for a property that you can either add on to, either going up or going back, or just because there might be a possibility of saving the foundation. And that's a huge...
That's the most expensive,
yeah,
right?
that's a huge cost savings that a lot of people don't think about. It's not just the foundation and the basement, but the utility connections that are already at the house. So you're really just working with the footprint of the house and maybe adding on. As opposed to raw land is a lot more extensive because if there's no utility connections, those can be very expensive. I would say first having your budget, then from there, determining what exactly you're looking for, looking at what's available on the market, looking for pre-sale opportunities or properties that you can renovate. And then if you can't find any of those, then we can go the new build route. And I would connect you with a builder that specializes in a custom build to help you find either a piece of land or a property that we could add a level or put an addition on.
Yeah. So now a lot of these builders, I must say, how would you go about making sure that you're dealing with the right builder?
So I have a lot of builders that I've vetted out previously. If you're going to do a custom build route, you want to get first what other properties has the builder done. That's very important so you can see kind of their work, seeing if they have any active projects currently. So there's a lot of pre-sale properties that are on the market now that agents will promote and they allow people to walk through.
Yeah.
And I go to these job sites and I am appalled that they would actually allow someone to walk through because how a builder keeps his job site is indicative of how they run their project.
Yeah.
So if the job site is a complete disaster and there's debris everywhere and Burger King wrappers and things are out of order, likely they're not managing their trades properly, and likely it's not a seasoned builder. I mean, yes, are there stages in the construction process where there's a lot of things happening? Of course. But if they're not having standards for their construction, then I would really be wary of that builder, because likely they're not a reputable builder or don't have their processes and systems right to ensure that you're getting a quality house.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it makes sense because, I mean, you're buying a brand new house or completely renovated house because you care about the details, right?
Yeah.
And if that person doesn't care about the details, that tells you.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most, like, the biggest horror story out there that you have seen, like the biggest mistake you have seen somebody make when it comes to like new construction or
I mean, I've heard all kinds of horror stories. I've heard stories of like foundations caving in. I've heard, I mean, there's properties that are on the market today that are just, the house is basically done and there's like no heat or no this. And you're just like, how is this possible? How are the tradesmen? They worked through the whole winter and there was no heat in the house and the house is basically done and there's still no heat.
Yeah.
Or builders that have a water issue and because they tried to save money initially by not waterproofing the house properly, then they're finding sewage backups like in a brand new construction house because they never replaced the sewer line.
Yeah.
Or what happens a lot is debris will be in the French drain from the construction process and they never cleaned the French drain. So now you have all of this backup in your French drain. And even though there's a French drain there, it's completely clogged from construction debris.
Yeah.
So it's mostly like the biggest issues end up being water and foundation issues. But I mean, if they don't hire a good plumber or they don't hire a good electrician, there's always a risk of something happening there where there's leaks or electrical issues. But I would say most of it is like foundation issues.
And I'm not familiar with this, but I've read about it. So you can get a warranty, right? For a brand new. How does that work? Is that something that other people do or?
Yeah. So for brand new construction, there's a 10-year state mandated home builder's warranty. So the state requires it. And it's basically because it's a new construction house. The foundation has not been solidified yet. And they want to mitigate the potential for structural issues with the foundation. So that's why you have a 10-year builder's warranty on a new construction house. If you buy an add-a level where they kept the foundation, then that foundation is pretty structurally solid. Like usually those homes are from the 50s or 60s or 70s, and that foundation is tried and true and been there. And a lot of times those are block foundations, which we still use block foundations. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. So the builder could offer like a home builder's warranty, which is like they would get it from a company like 2 and 10 or American Home Shield. And typically builders will come back for the first year for any nail pops or any issues that will necessarily come back. You still have the manufacturer warranties because all of your appliances are brand new, your roof is new, so you'll have all of the manufacturer warranties as well. But that structural warranty is only with new construction, not necessarily with add-a levels.
Yeah. Now, kind of switching to something related, but like, you know, what is considered a luxury home? You know, is it the price? Is it the details? Like, you know, there's a lot of, you know, that term luxury is always used in real estate. And sometimes it's like, okay, but what is it really, you know?
I mean, I think luxury is subjective for that person. So it used to be $1 million home was luxury, and there's a luxury tax on $1 million home.
Which,
now,
by the way, that's a whole different thing that we can.
Right. But now builders are buying $1 million homes to tear down. So Luxury is subjective to each and individual person. I would say whenever you're putting quality finishes, whenever a property is new, whenever it's turnkey ready, I would call that necessarily luxury because it's just move in ready and everything is new. So it's a luxurious feeling. You want to feel like you're moving into like a hotel experience.
Yeah.
Um, and ideally, that builder is putting high quality materials, and you have the open floor plan and the things that people are looking for: a brand new kitchen, quartz countertops or stone countertops, brand new windows. So luxury is kind of the experience that you're having when you're in the home, that you're moving into a home that is brand new, that gives you peace of mind or has high quality finishes. So even if it's not necessarily brand new, it's of a higher caliber than your basic builder grade.
Would you say that it's harder as a real estate agent to work in, in the luxury market, or that rather than, or, is it the same thing, like if you're selling say a $500,000 home that's been there for 50 years, as opposed to selling a $2 million home that's brand new, is it a harder transaction or?
No, I mean, people are people no matter what price point you're helping them. I think what makes you a luxury agent is not necessarily the price point that you're working in, but the experience you give to your customer. So I treat my clients the same, whether they're selling a $300,000 home or selling a $3 million home. They're all getting a luxury experience. I have systems and an operations department and agents on my team and an office manager, and we really ensure that we're delivering an amazing client experience. So that's a luxury experience and a luxury agent, I would consider. But I don't necessarily know if it has to do with the price point, because I've seen agents that are representing a luxury home and it might be a $2 million home and you can't even get them on the phone. They don't walk you through the property if it's under construction. There's no service whatsoever. They don't help steward the client through the process and aren't anticipating the things to come. So I would say when it comes to agents, it's more of like creating that luxury experience, to not regardless of the price point, but people are people, at every price point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think it's and I ask because there's a lot of agents that I meet that, brand new agents that are, they're, I would say, intimidated. The same thing with lenders. A lot of lenders are intimidated by the loan amount, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, it just comes back to just being able to handle that, how that experience and how you go through how you make them feel throughout the whole process, which is, let's face it, buying a house should be a good experience. Unfortunately, if you're dealing with the wrong person,
right,
it can be quite.
I mean, I will say this: in the higher price points, some of those buyers have higher expectations. So it's very important for me as their agent to be their professional that they can rely on. And it's important for me to have a very clear understanding of all of the details in the house, because that might not be their area of expertise. So I'm educating them on the comps, on the neighborhood, on the type of cabinets, on the finishes, on the things that were used in the house to help them determine, is this a good investment or not? So I would say that's more prevalent in the higher price points. With the lower price points, because that market is so competitive, people are they're more forgiving of, if it's not a brand new kitchen, or it's not, if they have to do a renovation on the bathroom or something like that, or they don't have exactly everything on their checklist, because that price point is so competitive. It's the entry level, and there's so many buyers out there trying to get into a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 house.
Yeah, it's tough. What would be your advice to someone who is a seasoned real estate agent but wants to move into the luxury market or the brand new construction, all of that?
I would say educate yourself on everything in the house. You should be the go-to expert on, all of the details of the house so that you're able to pinpoint, hey, this is the type of heating or cooling, or these are high efficiency hot water heaters. And, is there radiant heat, and what is radiant heat? So I would say educating yourself in construction is really important. Just like if you're a financial advisor, you should know about not just the different stocks, but like understanding the different companies and why it's a good idea to invest in those stocks. So I would say educating yourself on construction, on all things about the house. If you're looking to break into a certain market, let's just say you're looking to break into Short Hills, for example, I would go to every single high-end price point house in that market to get a better understanding of, well, what makes a $3 million versus a $3.5 million versus a $4 million house? What are the differences? So that you're able to educate yourself before you have that buyer and say, hey, this is what you can get at these different price points, and here's why. If you're looking to break into a luxury market, you need to have a very great customer experience that you can deliver, because when you get that client, you want to be able to serve them at a high level. So if you don't have your systems right and you aren't proactive in anticipating kind of what the steps to come and like over communicating with them.
And that's so important, over communicating, and being clear and to the point.
Right, clear and to the point. And I would also say kind of going into the networks that those people are in. So, if you really want to break into Short Hills, let's just say, is there an opportunity to go to a gym class, or like where are they hanging out, or hang out at Starbucks, or go to the local steakhouse, because a lot of the people that live in that area are like hanging out in that area in downtown Millburn, and just getting yourself assimilated with the area and trying to meet as many people in that area. And then before you know it, things happen, or you start to make build relationships with people.
Yeah, let's talk about social media.
Yes.
And also with lottery too, because it goes to a point like, I see a lot of people right away, they put their biggest focus on social media, and it's like, okay, I want to, what's the saying, you got to fake it till you make it, right? And sometimes I go like, really? But you said something that's so important. It's like, hey, you got to educate yourself.
Right.
You got to know your things. And then you go ahead. At least for me, that's the way I see it. It's like you need to do your homework. You need to know how to actually do a transaction. And then you can go ahead and go into social media and go all out. Because many times what it happens is that you'll put out content, people call you, and then it's like, oh, that's not meeting the expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And look, I have to say, your social media, like it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Very impressive. And like I said, I've been, stalking you. I wouldn't say stalking you, but I've been following you for a while, and I always look at your videos, and I always feel like, look, this is educational. Like I feel like when I watch your videos, it's not just the same thing. It's like I definitely get something out of it.
Great.
So if you could just talk a little bit about your philosophy behind social media, and any tips for anyone out there that's, that has gotten to a point where it's like, hey, I'm ready to go out there and start marketing myself in a different manner.
Sure. I would say just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. And it's okay to be learning through the process. Just because I say educate yourself, nobody's expecting you to be the expert. And a great way to put out content is teaching the things that you're learning. So as you're learning them, be putting that content out. As you're going to preview houses, just say, hey, I'm going to preview this house in this market. What do you think it's worth? Things along those lines. So people can kind of follow along in your journey as well of learning a new market, or however you might bring value, because if it's valuable to you, it could also be valuable to someone else. So the whole idea of fake it till you make it, I always try to be as authentic as possible. And I wouldn't necessarily, if you were a newer agent, say, I'm super experienced in this thing, but you could say, hey, I'm going to come with me as we check out the market here in this area. You don't have to say that you're unexperienced, just putting yourself out there. And if it's valuable to you, share that value with someone else. And the best way to learn is actually to teach and using that as an opportunity to put content out.
Yeah, no, that's that was a great point because I did that for a while where I maybe like 3-4 years ago, and I started learning like new mortgage programs that I'd never dealt with before. And basically, I said to myself, okay, you know what? I'm gonna learn it by actually making videos about it. And then later down the line, I use those videos to go ahead and put out there. Do you get any clients directly from social media, or is it more like a brand, you're like, do you actually get somebody sending you a DM? Hey, I want to buy a house.
Yeah, I do actually. I get people that reach out to me on DM. I would say social media is really valuable for your sphere, and it's another way of connecting with your sphere. So for me, my whole business is referral. So people want to work with you because they know, like, and trust you. And even if people don't necessarily know you, like we didn't necessarily know each other before, but you're following me on social media, so we kind of have a relationship without even ever meeting.
Yeah.
So just by putting that
Hey,
content
that's
out.
Amanda.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing with the people that are following you or your sphere. They're following along, and they're watching your content out there. And the more content you put out, the more they know you or like you and trust you to say, hey, you know what? When it does come time for me to buy or sell, I want to reach out to you. The other thing that social media has been good for is, let's just say, if there is a client that I don't necessarily know, or a lead is sent to me somehow, they are doing their due diligence on me and saying, hey, do I really want to work with this person? Let me check them out first. And then they'll come across my social media page and they see that I have all of these videos and posts about working with new construction, and they're like, okay, I guess she knows what she's doing by the content that she's putting out. So I think it's just kind of an expression of who you already are. Don't be afraid of putting yourself out there and teaching the things that you're learning, and be educating the public. And before you know it, you're the subject matter expert that people turn to.
Yeah, no, and it's I had another guest on this podcast say that social media is your storefront. And, I just feel that, it's once you have everything organized and you have a good look, like people, I mean, nowadays it's the first thing that, people go to Instagram.
Right.
It's like immediately. And it's super important. Now, I mean, just going over like everything that you were saying, working with new construction and everything, how is it for a woman to work in, and then I don't say this in a bad way, but it's like, obviously there's a lot of builders are men. I personally don't know many women that are builders. At least I haven't met them. I need to meet more. But how is it to work in that industry where, like, at least the perception is like, look, there's no women out here,
Yeah, I would say when I was first starting out, I thought that it was challenging because I'm working with contractors and they're looking at me like I don't necessarily know what I'm, talking about, because I don't know construction, and because you're a guy, you must magically know construction. But I've come
and I have to interrupt you there. I have no idea whatsoever on how to put a nail. Like, I absolutely, my wife always tells me, you better make a lot of money because you have to pay people.
Yeah.
It just.
But what I found is that being a woman is actually a superpower in this industry. It's not a limitation at all, because women have a gift of making a house a home. A woman has an ability to look at a set of plans and not look at it as like, okay, this room, living room, dining room, kitchen, but okay, how is a family going to live in this house? Where are the kids going to come in and drop their stuff? And how am I going to feed them? Are we going to sit at the island, or are we going to sit at the dining room table? And when I have holidays, where does the Christmas tree go? Those are the things that a woman is thinking about that maybe not necessarily all men are thinking about. So it really becomes this superpower, because we have visibility into not just the house, but how it affects the lifestyle of the family and creating it into a home. I work with a lot of female builders actually, and they are awesome, and they command the respect of their contractors. They are no BS.
Yeah.
And the contractors, they love them because they are just like, no nonsense. This is the job that we have to get done. And they can do it in a strong and kind way without getting taken advantage of. So shout out to all the female builders out there. We need more in this industry. And there's a definite opportunity for more women to dominate the space, because women are great when it comes to real estate and construction.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, just to think, like I will have no idea what's good or bad in certain parts of the house.
Right.
Like I have no idea whatsoever. So it's having somebody who has that background and say, okay, you know what, this should be done this way. And more than anything, it's attention to detail.
Right.
It's attention to detail that, look, a lot of guys just don't have that. That just, it's not, and like my wife, I always say, like, you want to get done something completely right. I'll get my wife to it right away, because she's going to look into everything. And sometimes for me, it's like, okay, I'm just basically, hey, get it done, get it done, get it done. And then miss parts. And I'm sure there's some guys that do the same thing, but yeah, it's an important thing that, like you said, hopefully, we get more women in this field.
I agree.
And I know you mentioned too about that you have, is it like education platform, networking group at a level?
Yes. So my husband and I, we have a group. It's a mastermind for people that are not just in New Jersey, but throughout the country. We have people from around the country, actually, that are in our group. And it's a collective of real estate investors that are looking to scale their business from flipping one or two properties to actually building a real business, and going from flippers to builders and developers, from renovating homes to doing at a level and new construction. We kind of help coach and mentor and steward them through the whole process. We really want to build a community of people that are doing things the right way and building good quality homes in our area, but throughout the country. So we've developed systems and processes for construction on what trades go in what order. And then we also refer out our local trades that are vetted, tried and true. So this collective, I mean, the people in the group are doing just amazing things. And there's a lot of women in the group too that were so afraid to kind of like do their first property. And we have one woman that was like, had never done an at a level or a renovation or anything. And she just jumped right in. And now she's doing like 5 or 6 projects right now, including multiple Short Hills projects that, and she's doing it by herself. So, I mean, we really want to help empower people that are afraid to take that leap and scaling and growing their business and going to the next level, and add a level to their business, whether it's add a levels or new construction. If you don't have the skills, we're there to kind of coach and help you through it to avoid any very expensive mistakes that can happen through the process.
Yeah, because I mean, it's amazing. A lot of times, all it takes is just really some inspiration. There's some of the projects I did, my biggest accomplishments came from actually seeing somebody and having them tell me, yes, it can be done.
Right.
And you just go ahead and go like, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and do it. So I'm usually like, a big proponent of people, just connecting with other people, because you really have no idea what you can do or cannot do.
Yep.
And again, there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much, everyone's going to tell you, no, you can't do it, but they've never done it before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How is it to flip a house? Like, let's talk about that, because a lot of times, sometimes it just, again, going back to HGTV and all of these, we see a flip and, is it something that's still profitable? It doesn't make sense. It's something that somebody who's just starting, who's never had a house before, should be doing.
I would say that it can be very profitable, but it can also be very expensive if you don't know what you're doing. Where there's a lot of risk, can be a lot of reward, but the risk is definitely still there. So in our group, we really help coach people on, like, the money you make is not when you sell, it's actually when you buy. Because if you're not buying it right, then like you could do all of this work and get to the finish line and come out flat or even lose money. So just making sure that you're buying it right is very important, that your numbers are tight. I mean, construction costs are going up right now. Lumber just went up 30% this week. So things are constantly changing and evolving. And I think with anything you're doing, it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people who are doing what you're doing and more. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're not surrounding yourself with other people that are doing what you're looking to do, you have a huge missed opportunity, because now we have mind share that we can help each other through all of the challenges in the construction process. So finding opportunities is a lot more difficult now, but it's not impossible, because you're not necessarily buying what's there, you're buying what it could be. Fixing can be challenging because construction costs are going up like crazy. If you're doing a renovation or a flip, unexpected things happen all the time. And, contractors can run off with your money if you're not structuring your invoices properly. And then when it comes to selling, selling is also very critical, because a lot of people will, just because someone found you a deal doesn't necessarily mean they're the best person to help sell your deal on the back end. Yeah. So it is a luxury experience. You've just invested all of this time, money, and effort.
It's a different type of property.
It's completely different property now. So you've just invested all this time, money, effort into building this property. Trust it in the hands of someone that knows new construction and is able to communicate all of the work that you've done with the buyer and be able to present your property in the best light. And if they don't necessarily know new construction or have sold or pre-sold a property, I don't necessarily know if that would be the best person to sell this huge investment that you've made on the back end, because that's where I've also seen people just kind of lose potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just and I always ask these things, and to clarify, is not to scare people of not doing it, but to actually tell people, hey, you need to take it seriously. You want to do this, you need to take it seriously. You need to, actually probably partner with someone who has done it before. Like, just because, look, just like any business.
Right.
Anybody from the outside can tell you, hey, I can do that. It happens to me all the time where they go like, hey, I can be a mortgage, right. That's easy. And then it's like when they get in there, they have no idea how they deal with the stress.
Sure.
Because, hey, newsflash, doing a mortgage is stressful, at least for us. But yeah, it's about like having that reality, reality check is like, hey, let's go ahead and do this. Yeah. So as we start wrapping up, I want to know 2 things. What is the one project or accomplishment in real estate that you're the most proud about? Most proud of?
To be honest with you, there's not any one sale that I could say like, wow, I'm so proud of that. What I am proud of is the relationships that I've built and how I've been able to see my clients scale their business from 1 property to 10 or 12 properties, and being part of that growth trajectory with them, that makes me so proud of them, and so honored to be part of that journey. And I guess I am proud that I had my part in helping their growth and evolution and seeing them scale their business. So seeing other people's wins is actually what makes me the most proud. Like when I get a client hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking price, and this is what they have for the rest of their life. This is their
Yeah.
life savings. Or when I'm, get a great result for a client, and now they're able to finally buy a home for their family after they've built homes for others. So things like that are like the proud success stories, but it's not necessarily like about what I've done. It's like seeing what's possible in this industry and how it impacts other people's lives. That's what makes me like so proud.
And what is next for Amanda? What is the next big project? What's out there? Like, the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we're working on currently, kind of growing in the commercial aspect also, investing more personally. But then my husband just got his builder's license in Florida. I'm getting my real estate license in Florida also. So being able to kind of help our snowbird friends and kind of do what we've done here in New Jersey, down in Florida also. And then eventually we're looking to invest internationally and buy a property in Portugal.
That would
And
be great.
yeah,
Just
that would be great.
Just don't forget me, Just
Never. You will be the first to be invited. I do have some questions for you, though,
go ahead.
as we're talking about new construction. So what I think is important for people to just kind of understand, now I'm interviewing you, is like how important having an amazing lender is through the construction process. So maybe you can kind of talk about like the different construction loans. And one thing that I think people don't necessarily realize is that if you are buying a property pre-construction, you need to have a loan product that has a long-term rate lock. Yeah. So kind of like talking about how that works.
Yeah, there's many different types of, like I tell people when, a mortgage is not just a mortgage.
Right.
There's like, there's many different ways of cooking the chicken. And everyone has, depending on their current situation, everyone needs something different to them. So, for example, some people will get what we call like a loan that will go ahead, and the moment that we give you the money, you have a fixed rate for the whole time. Then there's other people that will go ahead and have a type of loan that maybe there's some variable period for it. So it's the right product for the person is just gonna depend on their situation. But what I do tell everyone, and not to go into too many details, but is look, you need to have a plan.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is, you need to have a plan. Whatever worked for the other person is not gonna work for you.
Exactly.
There are some people that have a ton of money and they don't care. There are some people that this is their life dream. And you know what? Yes, they're buying a $2 million house, but they save for a long time and they cannot afford. So it's a matter of sitting down and actually just putting together a plan with the agent, with the builder, depending on the situation, with the contractor. Like all these things have to be taken care of before. And going back to the experience, like, look, I do a lot of 2 or 3K loans and renovation loans. And people just, they have no idea how complex these things can be.
Right.
And how many people are involved in the transaction. So what ends up happening is that they go in with the mindset of, hey, no, it's just they'll give me money to buy a house, and then they'll just give me money that I can go ahead and.
Right. A lot of people think, I make a lot of money, so of course I'm going to qualify.
Yeah. And it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's a grind to get these loans into, because you know what? At least in the state of New Jersey, if you default on a loan, it's not that easy to for the bank to take over. So, it's basically, for renovation loans and for construction loans, really, you're dealing, the bank is going to make sure that the contractor or the builder, they know what they're doing, that they have plenty of recommendations. They're going to make sure that they have their licenses. They're going to make sure that the permits are in place.
Right.
They're going to make sure that the appraisal of the house that they're buying, that the condition and the after repair value is there. So there's so many things involved that you need to have the right person that, one is going to have the patience, 2 is going to be knowledgeable, and then lastly, that's going to fight for you.
Right.
Because it just, it's a grind.
What would you say to someone that's torn between buying a property pre-construction, where they kind of step in and the house is maybe 3 or 4 months away from being done versus someone that says, I really want to do, I want a custom home. Should I buy the land first and then find a builder? What would you say in terms of
Look,
the routes they
I
should
just
take?
had that question literally like as I was coming here. Somebody called me and said, "Hey, we found a land in Livingston." And it was like the lot was going for 600,000, but they don't have that much money, you know. And it's like, look, if you're buying a lot and you're going to and you're going to build the house, one, you're just going to need a lot more money and have reserves. And a lot of the banks, every bank is different.
Yeah.
You know, these are not, you know, like there's some loans that we could do like FHA, new construction or conventional, but those things are far in between. Then there's like private banks that we use to provide these mortgages. And for the most part, they're going to want to make sure that you have enough money just for contingency. Because you know what?
Right.
Things happen.
Right.
Things happen.
I think people underestimate the cost of construction. I would say if there's anyone that's like, you know what, maybe I do want to buy a house, estimate at least 3 to 350 per square foot for construction costs, and that doesn't include your utilities, that doesn't include your architecturals, that doesn't include anything. That's just pure construction cost, basic stuff. That a retail buyer is going to end up paying a builder just to build onto the house.
I'll give you an example. We're talking about my house. So my house is bi-level, and I have a lot of land. In the back, I had this sunroom, and it was pretty old. And I was like, oh, I want to get rid of these. I want to build a new deck and everything. So talking to my wife, we're like, okay, you know what? We are going to go ahead and just actually put a foundation and everything. And this was a few years ago. Again, me not knowing much. I go ahead and I call a friend. He's like, okay, so the first thing you got to do is get an architect. Well, the architect loan was $6,000.
Right.
And then we're like, okay, you know what? We're going to go get the architect. I'll pay the $6,000, whatever. Comes in, gives me a plans. Then he says, okay, now we got to get it approved.
Yeah.
So I go to a town. And then one of the reasons I bought my house is that I have my driveway semicircle, and I could put like 8 cars in there if I want to. Not that I have 8 cars, but I do have my in-laws sometimes and family, so I like to just be able to come in and do that. So when I go to a town, they're like, okay, listen, the use of your land is more than, can't remember. It's like
your coverage ratio is
my
over.
coverage ratio. So you know what? We can do this, we'll approve it, but you're going to have to cut my driveway. I'm like, no, there's no way.
You're right.
And then it's like, okay, you know what? Now I already spent $6,000. I already spent time on getting this approved. Then I go ahead and say, okay, you know what? Let's see what other options I can do, right? They tell me, look, you can get a variance, you know? I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Not at least have variances. Like you got to put $3,000 here, then you have to fight, then you have to go into and then you have to let know your neighbors of what you're doing.
Yep.
You know? And then I'm like, okay, let me start planning. Let me talk to a couple of builders about this. And I'm really, basically my house is, 2,200 square feet. I want to get it to 27 with that. Some guys will tell me 100. Another guy's 150. This is 2022. Bottom line is that it was going to be like 150. And I'm like, Now I'm building for 150,000. I know my house. I mean, I'm going to love it. But if I spend $150,000, what's going to happen when I sell? Because I know I want to go and buy a bigger house.
Right.
And then it's like, I'm doing the math and it doesn't work.
Right.
So, bottom line is this. I ended up spending $9,000 into something that I was very excited, but it never happened.
Right.
And why? Because me, even though I've been doing financial services and mortgages for 20 years, I'm thinking I know everything. And I should have called someone like you or someone who actually, this is the expertise and to tell me, hey, this is what you got to do.
Right.
So it's people just have this idea, and you have to know what you're doing.
Right.
And a lot of times I'll say myself, a lot of times I'll come into certain products that I go and I tell people, look, I'm just not the right person for that. But let me put you in touch with someone else that I fully trust. Let's make it happen. Or even at our company, we have access to a bunch of people. So we'll go ahead and say, okay, you know what? let me put you in touch with this person, because frankly, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, understanding that just because you buy a piece of land doesn't necessarily mean it's your land that you could do whatever you want with it. It's crazy. The towns have so many restrictions, especially here in New Jersey. So understanding setbacks, coverage ratios, the variance process. I mean, we try to avoid variances at all costs because it's just like you said, and there's no guarantee you spend all of this money and there's no guarantee that you go through the whole process and that it gets approved. You could have one neighbor that says, no, you know what, I really don't want that pool house or shed on the side of my property because now I'm going to get water runoff. Or they say, okay, even if it does get approved, now because you're over on coverage, you need to get these huge water basins that are water retention basins, and you need to dig them up and put them into your backyard.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I just wanted to put a little pool house. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And it gets out of control.
I took down about close to 70 trees, small and some big ones. And I started taking them down, and the town came at me.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I was like, hey, it's my land, I could do it. I learned I have to go ahead and follow our process.
Yep.
And then, by the way,
And they charge you per tree.
Yeah, basically that was it. Basically, I just had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I had to do it over 3 years, you know? And
It's just a money grab. And then if they catch you doing it, did they make you pay the fee like per tree?
no, I mean,
Okay.
I kind of got away with it, but listen, it's not. These are difficult. I wouldn't say difficult, but these are things that require someone who knows what they're doing. You know, it just requires, like, I wouldn't, you know, like anything, especially, you know, with a mortgage or anything, please, like, you wouldn't go to a cardiologist to have something related to your skin, you know?
Right.
Like, you need to go and deal with somebody who knows. And that's my biggest thing to everyone. Just make sure that you have someone and you vet that person, like you were saying.
Right.
You vet that person. But listen, Amanda, I thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, getting to know you more, and appreciate you even inviting me on here.
Yeah.
So
And
thank
listen,
you so much.
I'm going to put it out there. I do want to go into one of these projects that you have one of these days.
Of course.
Maybe we can talk a little bit, you know, this will be like part 2.
Yeah. So we actually host a bus tour 3 times a year. You don't have to be part of our accelerator program, but if you are, you get free admission into the bus tour, where we do a bus tour on all of our projects or projects of different students in the group. So you can see projects in different stages of completion. So like, let's just say if you were interested in renovating a property or understanding what the process is, we're going to be doing the next bus tour, I think, end of April, something like that, where you can come to see, you know, different projects in different stages of completion and learn the construction process to determine if that's something that you really want to undertake.
I think I'm going to be doing that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
perfect. But thank you very much for coming to the Dani Ariza podcast. This is episode 7.
Awesome.
Episode 7.
You were great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.